Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. As U.S. President Donald Trump embarks on his second term, his administration is doubling down on its America First economic and trade policies, sparking concerns among key U.S. allies, including South Korea. Trump's most recent tariff policy, which slaps 25% tariffs on imported steel and aluminum from March 12, eliminates previous exemptions, which is expected to deal a big blow to South Korea's exports. From semiconductor disputes to steel tariffs, South Korea faces mounting pressure to adjust its economic and diplomatic strategies. Meanwhile, the resurgence of North Korean provocations and escalating U.S. China trade tensions add further uncertainty to the region's security dynamics. With this, how should Seoul navigate these challenges and protect its strategic interests? For this, we invite Patrick Cronin, Asia-Pacific Security Chair at the Hudson Institute, via Zoom. Welcome, Dr. Cronin.
Thank you so much.
And also joining us is Imun Jung, Professor of International Studies at Kongju National University. Great to have you, Professor.
Thank you.
So let's start with Professor Lim. Trump recently pinpointed South Korea and Taiwan for taking away America's semiconductor industry. This is the first time he explicitly mentioned Korea in this context. Could this signal a shift in Washington's broader trade policy towards Korea?
Well, I can't generalize everything because there are so many things are on the table. But more consequently speaking, I will say I can probably highlight three President Trump's top priority. Number one is absolutely President Trump is trying to prioritize U.S.-American competence in the future technology, such as AI, artificial intelligence, and space technology too. Of course, this competition is mainly with China, but anyhow, again, the President Trump is definitely want to strengthen further, again, the U.S.'s those future technology related competence. And number two is absolutely President Trump is trying to make a better balance in the U.S. again the trade balance sheet. So through the tariff or through his more newer concept again the reciprocal tariff. Anyhow, he's trying to again to make a better balance with any country, including again the ally like Korea or even Japan or any. So this is number two. And number three is, again, through that, at the end of the day, President Trump is trying to rebuild or revive, trying to make a revival of American industry. So far as these three, I think the top priority of the President Trump administration. And having said that, again, the semiconductor is absolutely related all the three issues. Number one, again, the technological competence. Number two, again, the trade balance. And number three, again, the revival of American industry. So, of course, at the more earlier stage, President Trump was more targeting, I think, the Taiwan rather than the South Korea. But now South Korea was also included. So, well, the TSMC, they decided to invest another additional massive amount of money to expand their factories in Arizona. So we might need to do the similar thing to deal with the Trump administration. The thing is, my probably suggestion to my government is we need to we need to take a more holistic approach rather than an item by item approach, because he does have, I think, President Trump has more comprehensive views on any specific country. So I will recommend, or I will try to suggest again to my government to design more like a holistic approach to negotiate with the Trump administration.
Right. So with Trump's strong rhetoric against South Korea and Taiwan regarding semiconductors, Dr. Cronin, do you expect additional trade restrictions or tariffs targeting South Korean tech firms?
Well, I don't think the United States is targeting Korea, but we do know that Korea is perhaps the most affected country. Other allies are obviously being hurt by these as well. But you are, as Professor Lim said, dealing with an American administration that is seeking transformation of both the global trading system and rebuilding the industrial capacity of America while raising revenue and doing so. So inevitably, this is going to lead to tariffs on the most advanced allies, in this case, South Korea. So yes, I do expect more, but I would also add, even as tariffs are placed by the Trump administration, there is an ongoing negotiation every day, every month. And so you never know if they could be changed in the future depending on how negotiations go. And of course, the Korean trade minister is heading to Washington here tomorrow.
Right, so we'll still have to see how discussions unfold. But President Trump has also recently repeatedly criticized the CHIPS Act and hinted at subsidy rollbacks. Dr. Cronin, what diplomatic strategies could or should South Korea pursue to protect its investments in the U.S.?
Well, there are a lot of smart people in Korea thinking about what is the diversification strategy, what are the mitigation strategies. There's no secret answer. Professor Lim suggested one approach, right, which is to adopt the TSMC approach, the Taiwan approach of adding extra investment in the United States, doing more production. And indeed, President Trump told business leaders yesterday that he expects the impact of tariffs to lead to that kind of greater investment. So he's clearly hoping that South Korea, among others, will start shifting more investment to producing some of these materials, including maybe steel and aluminum, here in the United States, and certainly more in the chip making, maybe more in biotechnology, certainly more in shipbuilding. So there are a lot of areas where there is potential for Korea to shift some of the production to the United States, and then seeking other ways, other markets, essentially, to mitigate the damage of tariffs.
Right, so holistic approach that to expand investments with the U.S. will be a potential answer to this. But trade tensions aren't, limited to semiconductors only. Washington has already moved forward with 25% steep tariffs on steel and aluminum today, and this is expected to cost Korean steel companies over roughly $690 million US. Professor Lim, how can Seoul leverage its economic and strategic importance to counterbalance increasing U.S. pressure?
Well, basically, I think even Biden administration, again, their approach was not that much fundamentally different, because at the end of the day, now today's America, what they want is basically they want to, I think, revival of the American industrial capacity in their own territory. It's a so-called reshoring strategy under the Biden administration. We called it like that, or friend shoring, ally shoring, near shoring. We did watch it many different shoring strategy under the President Biden's leadership. But now we have a very different wording, but I think, again, the goal will not be that much different from the Biden administration's target. Again, they want to rebuild the industrial capacity. So having said that, of course, as Dr. Cronin already pointed out, South Korea has very strong comparative advantages in specific fields, such as, again, the semiconductor, steel making, or shipbuilding, or bio too. So investment in the United States, our ally, is definitely can be a positive thing for both, win-win. But at the same time, to be honest, our concern is, up to what extent? We need to have our own factories in our territory too. So I think Taiwan's concern is pretty similar with ours as well, Japan as well. Of course, we are willing to invest more in the United States, again, our ally, but at the same time, we need to have a balance between the, our factories in our territory, in the United States. So I think of every, these, especially East Asian countries, are trying to figure it out up to what extent, we can do. But anyhow, I think for that, I think we need a more sincere dialogues, honest manage the dialogues with the Trump administration key people, key persons, and at the same time, even though economy is economy, security is security, however, at the same time, I think we definitely need to emphasize the role and existence of the USFK in our territory. Again, the Pyeongtaek, for example, Camp Humphreys, is the largest naval base in the world, and is that much close to, again, the mainland China. So the existence itself, the raison d'etre of the USFK is such a huge thing, not only USFK, USFJ too. So again, I would love to see more these kind of, again, the more constructive, again, the dialogues between the Washington and Seoul and Tokyo about this economic security nexus, again, between the alliances.
Mm-hmm. Right. So mentioning about the USFK, defense cooperation is definitely another key issue between U.S.-South Korea relations as well. So Dr. Cronin, with U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth set to visit South Korea soon, what major topics could be on the agenda? And do you think Seoul should brace for a renewed pressure on defense cost sharing?
Well, yes, you should brace for more disruption. I mean, Professor Lim and I can agree that we want constructive dialogue, but disruption is part of the tactic of the Trump administration to seek better negotiations. I think, though, the first thing that Secretary Hegseth ought to do is listen carefully to our Korean allies, because he has much to learn. We all have much to learn from our Korean allies about both the threat in the region as well as the capabilities that are needed to ensure continued deterrence and peace on the peninsula. But secondly, he is going to clearly deliver messages about greater cost sharing. That may or may not mean reopening the special measures agreement that was completed last year. But either way, I think the Trump administration is going to look for Korea, as with other allies, to shoulder greater security burdens. The United States is no longer in the same position here in 2025 that we were in the past decades. And when you think even about the steel and aluminum tariffs, you have to remember the United States was producing half of the world's steel and 70% of the world's aluminum back in World War II. I know that was a long time ago, but we do virtually none of that today. And so, as with security, our security burdens are so great, and yet we have wealthy allies like Korea. So the question is, can we improve that balance too? Not just the trade imbalance, but the security imbalance. And I think the answer is both sides want to do that, but we have to negotiate fairly. So talking about the extended deterrence, talking about the defense industrial base, including shipbuilding, talking about how to send a message to North Korea so that we continue to deter it, even while we maybe open up negotiations with North Korea later this year.
Right. So despite this negotiations that could pressure South Korea, do you think it could have any long-term consequences between the alliance between South Korea and the U.S., Dr. Cronin?
Yes, and my message to the Trump administration is that it's not enough to emphasize the potential benefits of your policies. You have to take a realistic look at the potential costs of those policies, whether it's climate change or whether it's pressure on allies. Nobody thinks tariffs are a great solution for the global economy. I mean, it's a tool, but it's not a great solution based on our history of, the Depression leading to World War II, for instance. So we have to be very cautious of how far we go. And I think the president has heard a lot of caution from CEOs and business leaders about this could be triggering a recession. So there are concerns here. And so I think there are some natural constraints on these negotiations here in the United States, as well as with our ally.
Mm-hmm. So while this military cost-sharing issue could become a contentious issue, Hegseth has emphasized on plans to, expand naval development, and it presents another angle. With the U.S. potentially allowing naval ships to be built abroad, Professor Lim, do you think this could open new doors for South Korea's shipbuilding industry?
Well, I want to remain optimistic, but at the same time, I think we need to be realistic too, as Dr. Cronin pointed out, for this specific issue as well. For example, 2024 July, Hyundai, HHI, and NSSC, they agreed on the MRSA, which stands for the Master Repair Ship Agreement. So, 1 month later, the Hana Ocean, they did the same thing. So basically, so-called MRO, the maintenance and the repair and overhaul, we already got some kind of framework for the cooperations between the Korean shipbuilders and the American Navy. So if the Secretary Hegseth came to my country again at the end of this month, I think definitely this kind of how to strengthen that kind of cooperation will be discussed as one of the top priority. But at the same time, I'm not a lawyer, but at the same time, we do probably need to think about all this more legal restrictions in the United States or even in the South Korea as well. But again, still I want to remain more optimistic because those shipbuilding industry has declined over time. But now, obviously, China became the very, very big number one. And Korea's this, comparative advantage has been somewhat kind of in trouble because of, for example, our aging population or becoming shortage of the more skilled labor. So again, the probably digitalization or those robotization can help a little bit of the industrial capacity competence. However, at the end of the day, all these skilled labors are so precious, especially for the shipbuilding industry. So we have many issues, again, the aging issue and shortage of the labor issues, some legal issues. But as long as, again, both countries share common interest in the naval cooperation and the shipbuilding related cooperation, I think we can find a solution, better solution for the sustainability of the both countries' navy and shipbuilding industry.
Right, so there's still room for cooperation in this area. Now let's also touch upon America's ties with North Korea as well. The regime launched multiple ballistic missiles on the first year of the Freedom Shield exercises, which is the first since Trump's second inauguration. And some see it as a diplomatic message towards Washington. Professor, how do you interpret this move?
Well, the Freedom Shield exercise, this joint drill, joint exercise is prerequisite, again, to make our alliance robust and sustainable and effective and functioning. Definitely joint exercise is necessary, and this is mainly for our defense purpose. Again, South Korea, we don't have nuclear, and many of our people are still concerned about this asymmetric situations, even though South Korea is much richer economically than North, and then our conventional military capacity is much greater than North. However, at the end of the day, we don't have nuke. Of course, we're reliant on the extended deterrence together with the U.S. Providing nuclear umbrella, but still the public sentiment is like that. So having said that, North Korea's reaction is always, another version of, again, the defensive reaction. They always say, that joint drill, joint exercise is offensive, and I'm doing this as a defense behavior. So it's a kind of, has been like that, again, for many, many years. But this was the first one ever since the President Trump came back to the White House. So I think they are still trying to, again, give some signals, not only just to Seoul and to Washington, and even Beijing or other neighboring countries as well. Again, that we are trying to defend ourselves from this ROG-US alliance's offensive behavior. But again, of course, I can't agree with that kind of, again, the view, because this is basically fundamentally as a violation of all these UN sanctions or the rules. We don't need to agree with all this, North Korea's propaganda. But at the same time, I don't think we should be very much shocked by that kind of behavior. It has been like that
it has been ongoing, right? We've seen them do that.
Yeah.
But with tensions still, rising in the Korean Peninsula, the White House has reaffirmed its commitment to North Korea's complete denuclearization following the missile test. Dr. Cronin, what are the chances of Trump's personal diplomacy with Kim Jong-un?
Well, they're probably 50-50. I think both President Trump and Kim Jong-un prefer that kind of top-level negotiation if it can be arranged and if they think they can benefit from it. But I think when your national security advisor visited the White House at the end of last week, it was made clear to him from the national security advisor, Michael Waltz, and other key officials that this was not a high priority for the United States right now. Clearly, the Trump administration has higher priorities. Look at the Ukraine-Russia war negotiations, for instance. That, of course, has huge implications, though, for what Kim Jong-un thinks American policy is. So it's of great interest, obviously, as Korea works through its own political process with this constitutional court, possible election, that we work closely to maintain deterrence, even as we exchange back-channel communications with North Korea in the pursuit of setting up some negotiations that could lead to a summit, perhaps in the latter half of this year.
Right. So as for South Korea, we will really have to cope up with our political situation and strengthen dialogue with Washington, of course. But we'll have to wrap up our discussion right here. We are running out of time. But thank you so much for your insights tonight, Professor Lim and Dr. Cronin. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Till then, stay informed and engaged.